This Rev 3 Games preview is brought to you by Gamefly.
It is a great pleasure to speak to two people who have probably made one of the finest games of this year and many, many other years. Bruce Straley and Neil Druckmann of Naughty Dog. Guys, thank you so much for your time.
Hi, Adam. How you doing?
I'm doing well. So let's first start with the panel that you guys did here at PAX. And you were kind of talking about what the process was to pitch this game. And I'll be honest, I guess I kind of look at sort of who you guys are, your company, and its status inside of Sony. And I would say that you could kind of write your own ticket, but there really was a process of having to sort of convince the company to get behind what is a very, very dark game.
Yeah, I mean, the audience was really what mattered, and the audience for us was the team, Naughty Dog. The first people we pitched the game to were our bosses, Evan and Christoph. And then from that, the next people were like a small group of team members that came and helped us on. And only at the end of the road were like a bunch of Sony executives like, here's what we're thinking of making. But for us, it's always like, how do we get the team on board? And that's kind of like where we're coming.
Yeah, we're super, super lucky, and we know that. Like, being Naughty Dog and the track record that we have, I mean, we don't take it for granted, but we know that Sony, Big Brother Sony, solely like got the deep pockets and saying like, okay guys, we trust you. You've established yourselves now. And it was really for us to do this, the panel and do the pitch for the team was also for Neil and I to make sure that we were okay with it, like we were happy and stoked about the game that we were starting to make. So
it was also great when the guys on the publishing side, you finish the pitch and they come up to you like, I'm really excited to see how you guys pull it off. And we're like, so are we.
Yeah. Now, obviously, this has been discussed even prior to the game coming out. Having a young female character so at the center of it is not necessarily jiving with sort of marketing, think in terms of selling games to a young male audience. I mean, how much of a challenge was that to make sure that she was part of the marketing and that it would still be able to connect with the assumed gaming audience?
It's something that we pushed for pretty early on. Like we realized that for all the marketing stuff that we put, any key art, any commercial, we want Joel and Ellie to both be prominent and equally prominent because it's a dual protagonist story that we're putting together, and therefore putting one in front of the other felt wrong. So anytime someone would present that idea, we would shoot it down pretty quickly and say, no, it's about these two characters being at the forefront.
We were scared that, I mean, the tone of the world is very brutal. It's it's a dark world, but it's a dark world purposefully to apply the pressure, onto those characters, all the characters in the world, because we want them to make interesting choices. But that meant that 14-year-old girl, Ellie, was also going to be put in some pretty dire situations, and we thought for sure, that Sony was going to push back, and marketing, everybody was going to push back and go like, no, we can't do this. And surprisingly, like Sony completely had our back, and not once. We put together a reel to show them sort of like things in the game, and we thought that they were going to like judge it or say no or cut it, and really they just wanted to be prepared so that when media got a hold of this, if they got a hold of it, then they were like, okay, we know how to handle it, but we trust in you, Naughty Dog. That's good.
We were actually surprised that not only like it didn't come from Sony, but even from reviewers and stuff and like the public, we thought it would be a lot more controversial, with the opening, with Sarah getting shot and all that. But I think people just bought into the story and understand what we were trying to do with these aspects of it.
When you guys were developing it, because I mean, it is a brutal, violent world and a brutal, violent game, but I had quite a remarkable reaction to it where the violence felt necessary and I didn't always enjoy it, that you really had an impact. Did you guys have a sense of where your line was, where you felt that where the player was willing to go? I'm curious how much you had to experiment with that.
Quite a bit. I mean, there's the sequence where we had the David boss fight is one example that comes to mind, where you see Ellie getting killed by David. And initially those used to be a lot more visceral than what ended up in the game. We felt like it's too much. You don't need to show as much. Let's pull it back. And a lot of times, the angle isn't such that you don't see how he kills her. So that, something that made us feel uncomfortable. But at the same time, we wanted to show the consequences. Ellie has to go through the same consequences as Joel, and if we're trying to say she's as much of the hero as Joel, then she has to face those consequences.
Yeah, for our core melee though, the way the player is engaging with the basic antagonism in the game, the hunters, etc., the cannibals, we actually kept pushing for more. I mean, it wasn't personal enough, it didn't feel visceral enough, and so we really had to like work on the animations to make it feel that intimacy that we really wanted, to make it in a way like to stir your gut a little bit and go like, oh, that was pretty bleak right there. And we kind of wanted that because we don't think that world doesn't necessarily take it lightly. We're not trying to make a statement about games and all this. It's just that world required that kind of like that power in taking somebody's life.
The character of Joel, did he end up the way that you imagined him when you first pitch the game. I mean, I've never known how to describe him. He's not an anti-hero, but he's definitely not a hero. And I think my relationship with him became increasingly more troubled as the game went on. Was he that complex a character when you first set out to make Last of Us?
Not as much. The darks weren't as dark. We always had the ending in mind, you know, where he would go into this operating room and, spoiler alert, and kill all the doctors to save Ellie. But you know, Tess was actually a villain in the initial pitch of the story, and she would torture people to try to find out where Joel went. And then once we removed that aspect of the story, Joel actually took a lot of those qualities onto himself, which made him a more complex, more interesting character, we thought. So yes and no, as far as that question.
Yeah, the other thing that you know, I didn't even realize until we just re-pitched the pitch from 3 years ago, and you know, I went back in time and was like, oh right, there was a turning point early on the story where Joel takes the action to protect Ellie really, really early on, and for us that didn't feel like there was enough room for that character to grow. We almost needed him to be more resistant, you know, and step away from that sort of protector role, and then build into that through gameplay and through the relationship and through this journey that we're going to put them on. So we also made some changes early in the overall arc of the story for that.
My final question is, what was it like working on this game? I think of Uncharted and Jak and Daxter. There's something fun, like as you build those worlds. It sounds like it could be psychologically a little challenging to sort of day in, day out construct something so grim as the world that's presented in The Last of Us.
The grim, I think, wasn't as hard as just the reality of the world. And Bruce said early on when we started working on it, it's going to be an awesome game to play. It's going to be a motherfucker to work on. I don't know if I could say that.
You can say that. Internet.
So yeah, it's the reality. It's like, how do you constrain, how do you block off level designs in the real world? When you're starting to run out of mechanics, you know, if you're doing a fantastical world, like, oh, Ellie could have all these superpowers and she can control plants, but we can't go there. So those were all like day-to-day struggles. We're just like beating our heads against the desk, like, how do we solve this?
Yeah, it's almost like we created our own little hell with this. I mean, for production. As a designer, you know, you rely on certain almost tropes as in video games, like Neil's talking about with powers, etc. But it's also for layout, just simply like trying to lead the player through an environment. Well, if I have a street that's made to go like one way, but we need to get you into an interior, and then how do you make a hotel fun? And do you still guide the player through those kinds of situations where it's like you don't have a landmark. We don't have those basic rule sets or those tools that you'd have as a designer. So yeah, it was really hard. And then of course, making a new IP, there was no blueprint for this thing. There's no other game out there that we can look at and say like, oh, this is how you do it. We'll just like mimic that. Every single decision we made as far as like gameplay, integrating story and gameplay, how does story motivate the gameplay, what kind of mechanics are going to be fun, how long does it sustain itself so we can get the pacing right, like all of those decisions were like, who the fuck knows, man? And it was just like, you just try and try and try. Thank God we have a team of amazing people that are willing to like stick with it and just like keep burning themselves and brush off the ashes and go like, I'm still good, let's go. And you know, yeah,
there was so much work that we threw away, right? There's like whole storylines, things that we captured on the mocap stage. You're like, that doesn't work anymore. We have to scrap it and rethink it. Layout, cover. We went from like having a cover button to not having a cover button to having it to removing it again. Where like a programmer wanted to murder Bruce, but at the end we felt like we got to where we needed to get.
Well, yes, you definitely did. As I said before, it's just a phenomenal game. Thank you, thank your team, and thank you very much for your time.
Enjoying our preview coverage and you want to support Red 3 Games? You do. Then why not check out GameFly? GameFly is the largest online video game rental service and offers you a choice from over 8,000 new and classic titles across all consoles and handhelds. Plans just start at $15.95 a month, and members can rent 1 to 4 games at a time and keep them for as long as they like. Once you're done playing, just send it back and GameFly will send you the next available game on your list. You can support Red 3 Games and get a free 15-day trial when you sign up at gamefly.com/Red3Games.